What if Donald Trump wins the nomination? What would the so-called Republican establishment do? Well, today there is word that the thought of a nominee named Trump is actually being entertained now among the establishment. And a new batch of polls shows that Donald Trump is still on top. Why that has some GOP insiders talking of a possible war on their own party's frontrunner? Plus, the guy who says he's the teenager who got into the private email of the CIA Director John Brennan says he's not through yet. Now he's named his next high-profile government target. That's ahead. And a genetic breakthrough for all you pet lovers. Scientists say they have finally figured out where dogs come from. Tweet us your pics, and we'll tell you where. Let's get to it.
Now, Shepard Smith reporting live from the Fox News deck.
First from the Fox News deck this afternoon, word of a, quote, panic in some GOP circles as Donald Trump hits brand new highs. That establishment Republicans say for the first time, Donald Trump might actually go the distance. More on that in a moment and what they would do in such a matter. First, a stack of new surveys out today, all of which show Donald Trump the clear leader. A Monmouth University national poll has Donald Trump at 28%, 10 above Ben Carson. Ted Cruz in third. No other candidate hits double digits. A CNN ORC survey shows a closer race. Trump with 27%, Carson 22%. Again, everybody else in single digits. An NBC News Wall Street Journal poll has it even closer. Trump 25%, Carson 22%, Marco Rubio in third. All three polls show support for Carly Fiorina has collapsed. She's back to single digits after getting a boost from that last debate. Those polls confirm that this so-called summer of Trump did not end with the season change. Now there's word that some establishment Republicans who do not like Trump at all are set to wage war. The conservative columnist and Fox News contributor Byron York wrote today that those anti-Trump Republicans are coming out of denial, realizing Donald Trump might actually make it to the primaries or beyond. York writes, that doesn't mean Republicans have made their peace with a Trump victory. On the contrary, some are preparing to do whatever it takes to bring him down, which could lead to an extraordinary scenario in which GOP stalwarts go to war to destroy their own party's likely nominee. Again, that from Byron York today. Already, the conservative business group Club for Growth takes credit for its attack ads cutting into Trump's support in Iowa. Team Fox coverage of the 2016 race, Ed Henry with the Democrats, first the Republicans, Carl Cameron in D.C., former President George W. Bush weighed in on two of his brother's rivals, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz.
Neither one being Donald Trump and Ben Carson, and there may be a purpose in that. The former president said months ago that he would help his brother in any way that his brother would like, and the latest instance of it was at a private gathering of Bush backers in Colorado. And the former president took a shot at Ted Cruz and to a lesser degree, Rubio. Cruz has been trashing the GOP leadership since he got to Washington, and in recent months he's been particularly harsh and slamming the Chief Justice John Roberts in particular, who was a Bush appointee. Cruz issued a statement when George W. Bush said that he just doesn't like Cruz, and Mr. Cruz's response was, well, I'm proud of having supported Bush in 2000 and worked in his administration when he became president, and I have great respect for him. And it's no surprise that he's backing his brother and attacking candidates he thinks pose a threat. When it comes to Rubio, the former president said he's not sure being a young first-term senator qualifies you to be president, but he immediately hedged his bets, arguably at the expense of his brother, saying if Rubio does win the nomination, he'll be back next year saying all that stuff doesn't matter. Trump is the solid frontrunner in all the polls. The grassroots just loves him. Carson has pulled into a virtual tie in some of those most recent polls. Nobody else is really even close, but there is still a huge swath of the GOP that believes once the attack ads begin, once the voting begins next spring, once the really bright lights start to burn, issues will overtake image, the outsiders will falter, and the experienced candidates will emerge. Not a lot of evidence that that's happening yet, Shep.
Well, not a lot of attack ads out there yet, but there are some. Anyway, Carl, thank you. Joining us now, the political editor for the Washington Times newspaper, Stephen Dinan, is with us. Stephen, thank you.
Good to be here.
Again, conservative Byron York in today's Washington Examiner says Republicans have not, quote, made their peace with the Trump victory. On the contrary, some are preparing to do whatever it takes to take him down, even if he becomes the nominee. Does this make sense to you? Is there some substance to this? Others have said it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A couple months ago, the establishment was demanding that Donald Trump pledge fealty to the Republican Party.
And he did.
And now they're turning on him. Look, the establishment is finding itself in the situation that they normally put conservative, religious conservatives and very harsh fiscal conservatives in every other presidential election. Usually the Republican Party is prepared to nominate an establishment Republican, and they tell the conservatives, get over it and get on board. This is the guy we've got. Now the party, those polls do look like Trump is the front runner. Obviously there's a while to go, but they're on the other side of that, and they're really scared about that. But look, a couple of things that are really interesting. You just went through all the poll numbers there with Carl. Donald Trump has led every single national and state poll in the major early states, South Carolina, New Hampshire, Iowa, since he got in the race. This is not a temporary phenomenon. The real surprise here is that the establishment is only now beginning to realize that he's a very real threat to them and that he's a very real candidate with staying power.
It's my understanding there have been a couple of thousand points, rating points inside of attack ads that have gone up in Iowa, and they've worked to some degree. Is that true?
Well, the Club for Growth says they've worked, and look, Donald Trump is still leading the polls in Iowa, and Ben Carson is still second. It's not really fair to say they're not the same candidate, but they do represent the same anti-establishment movement within the Republican Party. This is a conversation. It's not new. The establishment should have seen this. Well, we all saw this long ago. It's been out there since 2010 in the Tea Party. It's actually been out there since the end of the Bush administration in 2008. The conversation became, hey, where did we go wrong during the Bush years, and where do we need to get better? Donald Trump may not be exactly what those voters are looking for, but he's given voice to 30-40% of voters who feel that way. That's what's going on there, and as I said, it's surprising the establishment has taken so long to grapple with that.
If the establishment were to spend money in attack ads against Donald Trump, is there a calculation that has yet been made as to whether Trump would return that with money of his own? It's not like he's huge,
Yeah, so far he hasn't had to spend much money because everything he says, first of all, it gets resonance, but everything he says is news and it gets coverage. Yes, the answer is he may end up having to defend himself. More likely, he'll end up running ads to try and bring down whoever his chief opponent is when it gets to that. But, he brings something very interesting about Trump voters. We in Washington, the pundits, the political class, we spend a lot of time looking at statements that Trump makes and comparing them with where he was 2 months ago and 6 years ago and that sort of thing. The Trump voters, actually, they really don't care about that so much. Overall, they're sort of taking a general impression of Trump, and they like the anti-establishment sense he's bringing. They're not. It's unclear how successful negative attack ads will be for those voters who are committed to him because of how they approach the Trump phenomenon.
Yep, we can't know until it happens. Stephen Dinan with us from the Rotunda. Stephen, it's good of you. Thank you. I mentioned Byron York is the one who wrote the column today suggesting that the Republican establishment's considering going to war, or whether it would. Byron York is Neil Cavuto's guest in the next hour. Stay tuned for that.